Welcome to another chapter of The Smiling Ghost. I hope you enjoy it and have fun. Grab your popcorn. Chapter 8, The Past Haunts Me. Andrius's POV. Courtyard was a noisy chaos. Students were running around, animated conversations filled the air, trays of food were hurriedly balanced. Some teachers were eating lunch outdoors, others were mingling with the students. But I wasn't part of this mess. I never was. Balancing a stack of books in my arms, I walked firmly down the hallway. I just wanted some silence. I didn't have the patience to eat lunch in the same space as everyone else. My plan was to lock myself in the teacher's lounge, review some tests, and above all, avoid any unnecessary interaction. But then I saw him. Tomas. He was outside, sitting with two other teachers, laughing at something one of them said. His posture was more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. He gestured as he spoke, his eyes shining with excitement. And that irritated me. I frowned instantly. After the scene in the bathroom, I expected him to be more affected, to withdraw. But there he was talking, smiling, as if I hadn't caused him anything. That should have relieved me. But for some reason it didn't. I walked into the teacher's lounge and closed the door with more force than necessary. The room was quiet, with only a few papers scattered on the tables and the aroma of coffee lingering in the air. I dropped my books on the table and let out a heavy sigh, running my hand over my face. But my eyes returned to him. Through the window I could still see him. And then it happened. Tomas ran his hand absently through his hair, biting his lower lip as he listened to someone speak. My chest tightened. My entire body tensed. For a moment, it was as if time had dissolved. Because that gesture was exactly something Tom did. I remembered Tom sitting on the university lawn, the sun illuminating his dark hair, smiling at me that same way, running his hand absently through his hair before saying, "Andy, stop staring at me like that, you look like you want to eat me alive." I closed my eyes, feeling my heart hammer against my ribs. This couldn't be happening. Tomas wasn't Tom. But my body, my mind, my stupid heart couldn't grasp the difference. I clenched my fists. I took a deep breath, trying to ignore the pain spreading inside me like a slow poison. I was losing control. And that was dangerous. Chapter 9, Tom's Reflection. Tomas's POV. The moment I entered the room, silence enveloped me like a heavy blanket. Andrius was sitting at the table, his eyes fixed on a book, scribbling something with intense concentration. He seemed completely oblivious to my presence, but I knew better. He always knew when I was near. Then, without taking his eyes off the page, he said 3 words. "You won't last here." Simple. Cruel. Direct. My chest tightened. Not just from the hostility evident in those words, but from the tone. He wanted me to leave. He wanted me to give up. But I'm not a coward. And for some reason, something inside me, perhaps a simmering anger, perhaps a desire to confront him, made me answer without hesitation. "I'm not as fragile as you think." My voice was steady, without a tremor. Andrius finally looked up, and in that instant, something changed. He was looking at me as if he'd been punched in the gut, as if he'd seen a ghost. The air in the room grew heavy, electric. And then I realized. He wasn't looking at me. Not really. He was seeing someone else. Tom. His blue eyes narrowed and his jaw tensed. For a brief moment, I saw something that felt like fear mixed with anger. As if he was fighting something inside himself. Should I apologize? Should I back down? No. Because for the first time since I'd met Andrius, I felt like I had some power over him. And maybe, just maybe, he was more lost than I was. I couldn't believe the way he answered me. The certainty of those words. "I'm not as fragile as you think." It was something Tom would say. Tone of his voice, the look in his eyes, his posture. Everything about him, for an instant, was a torturous reflection of the past. And I hated it. I remained silent, just stared at him, trying to stifle the irritation that was building inside me. Students began to enter the room, and the weight of that exchange of glances still hung in the air. They felt it. The mood was different. Tomas tried to act normal, but I wouldn't let him. Whenever he tried to help, I ignored him. When he wanted to interact with the students, I cut him off, taking control of the class without giving him space. Every time he moved around me, I pretended he wasn't there. He wanted to make things easy. I made sure to make them impossible. His first day was a disaster. And maybe it was my fault. But I wasn't going to admit it. Not to him. Not to myself. Tomas's POV. The day was finally over. And all I wanted was to disappear. I carelessly threw my materials into my backpack, not caring if the papers got crumpled or the books got messed up. My hands were still shaking with frustration. Andrius gave me no respite. He made a point of sabotaging me. He cut me off, ignored me, made me look useless in front of the students. I tried. God knows I tried. I wanted things to work out. I wanted him to respect me, at least as a coworker. But what I got in return was a wall of ice and contempt. Now, walking through the empty hallways, I felt the weight of that day crushing my chest. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry. If he wanted to break me, I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. But deep down, a question kept echoing in my mind. Why does he hate me so much? Chapter 10: A Ghost from the Past. Andrius's POV. That week was hell. Tomas was always there. His presence suffocated me. With every mistake, every gesture, every word, I found another reason to attack him. He was insecure, hesitant, always questioning himself, but also stubborn enough not to back down, not to give up. And that only made it worse. Because every time he looked up after I scolded him, I saw Tom. And I hated it. But then, one day, in the middle of another tense class, Tomas did something simple. Something he probably didn't even notice. He laughed. It was a small, muffled laugh as he helped a student with an exercise. But in that moment, something inside me broke. That laugh. It was identical to Tom's. And suddenly, I wasn't there anymore. I was in another time. In another life. It was a college party. The noise was deafening, loud music, laughter rippling through the room, the smell of alcohol mixed with the scent of sweaty bodies. The kind of party I didn't usually enjoy. But that night, Tom convinced me to go. Come on, Andy, just for a few hours. He smiled, holding my hand firmly, his eyes shining with excitement. This is a terrible idea, I grumbled, but I couldn't resist when he pulled me into the crowd. Tom always had this power over me. He wore a tight black shirt, his hair deliberately messy, confidence radiating from him like a ray of sunshine. I, on the other hand, felt out of place as always. Relax, he murmured, leaning closer, his mouth close to my ear. You're with me. And by God, that was enough.